Mira in Germany. Hi, Mira. How are you today, or this evening for you?
Night, yeah, it's about 2:45.
Okay, well, we will answer your question as quickly as possible so you can get to bed. Thanks for calling in. What can we help you with today?
Yeah, I just listened today to a video from a woman who speaks about autism, having autism, and she said that before she was diagnosed with autism, that she identified as hypersensitive and that she thinks a lot of that there's a lot of overlap, and I wanted to ask if
if there's either like I don't like the term comorbidity for this because it's not necessarily like disease oriented, but like a convergence of certain neurological states together, or maybe is one often mistaken for another, and is that concerning at all? And yeah, great question. Christy, what do you think?
Yeah, I'll definitely say that to my understanding, these are distinct phenomena, and I want to be kind of mindful not to mix them up, but they are going to look similar in a lot of folks, and they are going to overlap if for no other reason than anywhere from, 20 or like 15 to 25% of the population is an HSP. And so that's going to include a lot of autistic folks. But they are going to look similar in terms of that sensory overload and difficulties with grounding and things along those lines. Courtney, I'm glad that you're joining back with us. We're kind of looking at the overlap between autism spectrum disorder and being an HSP. And I'm curious what kind of insights you might be able to highlight between those two distinctions.
Yeah, so I think it's an actual big distinction, but not to people from the outside. With autism, yes, they get overstimulated and they get sensory overload and they pay attention to little details. In a social situation, they will be paying attention to something completely not important, something irrelevant, and fixate on that. And highly sensitive people will be staring at the person's face intently. They will notice the change in body shift of the person that they're talking to. The connection is completely there. So it's the difference between the social situation of the two. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, especially with women with autism, it looks different than with men, at least generally speaking. And what she was saying was that a lot of girls are actually very empathetic with autism. And that's why it's often diagnosed so late in life, because they learn to mask very well, and they even call it like a chameleon effect. Yes. So girls with autism will try to fit in with whoever's around them and pick up on very little cues, very small cues, to be able to do that.
Yeah, I'm seeing functionally, again, from the outside, it looks like they are very similar. I couldn't speak to any individual's experience, and I'm sure that everybody's experience is, feels very unique to them. But also there's this, yeah, I guess my question, Mira, kind of building off of what you're asking, is it not dangerous, because autism isn't dangerous necessarily, but it can be mitigated with very specific regimens of therapy and all of this, to, especially for women who are often not diagnosed as autistic, to say, oh, well, here are 5 or 6 traits that correspond with being HSP. That must be what I am. And then they kind of just use that, as opposed to looking deeper and maybe realizing that, oh, hey, I am autistic. Oh, this is something else that I need to kind of dig into, and kind of where that distinction is made. And, you know, what are some good tips maybe for somebody who is wondering, which one am I, or am I both? And how do I figure that out?
Yeah. And so, I think the best route would go to a psychologist and get a test, because it is an executive functioning disorder when we're talking about autism. And I have 3 years experience working with autism. I did that for a while with young adults, and both male and female. And, it's very different. The processing is different. The attention to detail is different. The emotions are different. The social cues are different, because even if they are showing that, they are reading behavior, right? Maybe they have turned into this chameleon, but they're not feeling it. That's the difference. And they may be feeling their own emotion more than somebody else's emotion. Usually it's when it's in conversation, it's difficult for them to not talk about themselves. And I'm not saying that for all people with autism or anything like that, but from my experience, they have a hard time listening to other people's stories if they're not interested. And that's where that difference lies.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. Something I was really struggling to find the words for, which I think is, again, tied to this empathy piece. I want to recognize, of course, that as we're talking about autism, this is a spectrum disorder, and this is
Absolutely.
a wide variety of people with a wide variety of abilities and experiences. But even as hyper-focused as autism can often lend people to being, and that means that they might be picking up on subtle social cues in very specific ways, it's almost like when we talked about the distinction with neuroticism and that ability to become hyper-focused, which is not the same thing as having overactive or maybe highly active mirror neurons, overactive or highly active dopamine receptors. There's a sense of feeling those feelings that's maybe a little bit different from examining or studying them and then having your own feelings on top of it, which I know that this can all get a little bit circular and confusing, but that's frankly because we don't, as a society or as a field, understand it very well. When something is difficult to explain, it's largely because the science is just trying to catch up, and we're scraping away at the edges of the darkness, trying to get a sense of these things. Is that, I don't know, am I being overly negative, or is that a fair way of describing it?
That's true. You're spot on.
Well, thank you so much for calling in, Mira. I appreciate you staying up so late to talk with us.
Yeah, thanks for taking my call.
Yeah, for sure.
Take care.
Thanks.